solutions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
This is Bryan Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto...
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that SWAC, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee?
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, or maybe not. We are having problems in Houston, Texas, as they say. Houston, or should we just say Texas?
We have a problem.
Or the Deep South, we have a problem. With that, we will try to get Charles and Mike in. They might have a shorter stint because they've been without lights for a while. So I ask you all to consider them in your thoughts. And if you're a praying person, please pray for them. But without further ado, we've been able to team up with none other than the Sports Wrap from BCSN. We have AD, and we'll have Bryan joining us from that special team. So they'll stand in a lot of ways and provide the coverage that's necessary to make sure our fans of the lab make sure they get their HBCU Sports News of the Week. So I appreciate you standing up for us and jumping in as we do. But without further ado, as we wait for Bryan to jump back in and join us, let's go with AD, one half of the duo from the Sports Wrap from the BCSN platform. How you doing, AD?
I'm doing fine, Dr. Cavil. You know, I kind of feel like, and I'm going to use a academic analogy here. I feel like that grad student who is working for his professor, and his professor has assigned him to teach the undergrads. I'm that grad student who's working on his thesis, and he's got like, all right, I need you to have class today. But he's sitting in the back of the classroom just in case I screw it up. That's how I feel on here today.
I like that. That's a pretty good analogy for the lab with the professors in here and all. And see, we have the other better half, Bryan Fulford, jumping in here. I told you we got the dynamic duo from the Sports Wrap.
He couldn't find a parking space. He was a student who couldn't find a parking space and had to go to the other lot.
Hey, I'm doing like you do on your old school professors, you know, when you're a freshman, they trying to make a point, they lock the door on you.
Look, that's shocking. You know, can you imagine going to college and thinking you got all this freedom, and then you get to school and you're treated just like you were in high school? It's like, you know, that was a shock to me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's how it happens. Let me go back to AD. Welcome to the show. And as I told everybody that you're standing in for Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, the other co-hosts of this show, but we're going to do a little dynamic duo and see what we can get done. As I said, prayers up for those that are prayers, for those that give thought, for those that are challenging, and not only Mike Washington, but really all those over the Deep South, particularly in Texas, as we've had leaderships that don't know how to deal with winter storms that are different at this nature. So we've had people that supposedly had a rolling blackout, but there's been people talking about they wish it was rolling because it just seems like it is certainly a outage, period.
Hey, I got a question for you folks out in Texas. I mean, they do have televisions that, you know, weather prediction models and things of that nature, right? That happens in Texas, yes?
Yeah, it does. It does. We supposedly have some of the best people in the country that go to different schools to learn all this, but obviously we may need to send them back to Jackson State and their meteorology program because the ones around here seem to be failing this right now. Even worse, those organizations and companies that are supposed to understand not just weather patterns, but electricity grid patterns are having a major issue in terms of figuring it out. Now, this is Texas. Texas is proud. I'm from Texas. Actually born in Norman, Oklahoma, but my parents both from Texas. I got here as soon as I could. And so I claim Texas in a lot of ways. But there's something unique about Texas. We have our lone star, the lone flag. We so about ourselves that we were bold enough to be our own country. When that didn't work out, we joined the union. And then we figured out that would work. We tried to do succession. That didn't work. And just recently we said we're going to succeed again. But I'm not sure if that's going to work if you got to call in the federal government when stuff goes awry because you need help because you can't figure out, because you decide as a state that you're going to have your own grid pattern and not share with anybody else. Well, it sounds good when it's all about you. Mm-hmm. You the big dog, the big state behind Alaska. You know, it's a big thing, but when it go down like this, you got folks kind of looking at you like, who? What did you say?
Good thing it's not an election year.
You know, those people who study those weather patterns, I think they study hurricanes and tornadoes in your part of the country. They kind of slept through the snow patterns.
That's a great point. Maybe we'll blame it on that. I like that. At least we're going to try to give them some type of credibility, because right now it's a lot of people that are questioning a lot of folks, rightfully so, because this is a major problem in all seriousness. It's been people that have been going on literally 30 hours, 24, 12, 15 hours without power. And it's cold, and you got places here where folks are not necessarily used to getting cold, so they don't even have logs. You have some places that have gas, been able to do with some place, but a lot of the houses around here are all electric. So there's a lot of people hurting, and so we'll seriously muscle our way through it and certainly keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Welcome to episode 105 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of what HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I am your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. As we said, they're out trying to deal with the weather. So we have two gentlemen, the dynamic duo from Sports Wrap or BCSN, Bryan and A.D. A.D. and Bryan joining us, sitting in the studio for them. So we so appreciate it. And they're going to bring in hot and heavy. They bring funk too. And if you haven't already, go check their shows out. Go to BCSN, check them out. They give you great information. And if you want to find more information, frankly, on FAMU, as a lot of our SWAC fans are following us out there, check them out. If you want to know more information on Florida Memorial, NAIA, NCAA Division II, they specialize in that in a lot of ways, so they can keep you up to date in terms of making sure you get that great news as well. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KSOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University, right here from Houston, cold Houston, frigid Houston, Texas. Hopefully you get the message. As they would say in these parts around here, for those that are the brothers of the old black and gold, ice cold, baby. Cold. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what's going on here, just to give you an update. With that, let me go back to AD. Since you were able to get on here first, I'm going to reward you and say, start me out with some of the HBCU sports news of the week.
Well, go ahead and pull out your golf clubs, Doc. You know, we're going to talk a little bit of golf. Former Bethune-Cookman golfer Willie Mack III. And this article is courtesy of BCUAthletics.com. It's also been regurgitated on MEACsports.com. But it's just a great article just talking about a little bit about his experience. And his caddies are his former teammate at Bethune-Cookman and the current interim head coach at Bethune-Cookman are his caddies as he goes on the tour. He,
Wow.
Currently he is leading the tour that he's on in Florida in money thus far early in the season. And they're just talking about his experience out at Torrey Pines, because he played at that historic golf course at Torrey Pines. And last week, he finished fourth with a 36-hole total of 10 under. Shot a 134 and was 4 strokes behind the ultimate winner.
Man, I like that, AD. You went off the grid. You got us a little update on the golf side of things. Boy, I tell you, don't say we don't give you everything you need. And I told you, I got some talented people with me today. They're going to spin it a little differently. Before I go to Bryan, let me check it out and give some shout outs for those that have joined us. Kimberly Reynolds, James Knox, Kay Johnson says, good evening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Time for the weekly lecture. Let's go. That's what we do. Ricky Burton's on here. Chuck Hunter's always one of the first to get into the. Ricky is doing what he does with the weather affect games this weekend and next weekend. They affected games this past weekend and this week. We'll see. I think we're pretty safe for this weekend and certainly next weekend. But boy, I tell you, it's one eyes. This weather is fooling a little everybody. So we'll see how it's going. So we'll get into some of those cancellations a little later. George Walker, Gerald Wayne Joseph, brother Joseph showing me some love. I hope Joseph's doing well. Haven't talked to that good brother, boy. He brought me back in the fold. Texas Southern University, big time alum over there. Willie Alex Hine, checking us out in so many different ways. So again, for those coming in here and joining us, we have the BCSN crew, Bryan and A.D of Sports Wrap. So let's kick it to Bryan and give me some other HBCU sports of the week.
Doc, I appreciate it. And I just got to say, you know, it's funny that Drew brought up golf, where it was a paltry 70 degrees here in Florida. Not to brag or really to kind of throw that out to anybody who's struggling with cold weather in 49 or 48 other states. Hashtag move to Florida. You guys talk bad about Florida real recently. And so this is why we live in Florida, okay? It's open for business and it's warm. So, but anyway, I thought I'd get on the basketball news front, as this story just came out this afternoon, courtesy of Stillman College, the Stillman College Tigers from GoStillman.com. Of course, Stillman College, located in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, plays
the other school in Tuscaloosa.
The other school, but I just saw a tweet where it said Tuscaloosa, City of Champions. And the reason they did that is because Stillman College is able to claim the West Division championship in the Southern States Athletic Conference. Primarily, now, Stillman, if you haven't been paying attention on that, of the NAIA men's basketball, they are currently ranked 15th nationally in NAIA. And they're also, I believe, Drew, correct me, number 2 on the BCSN small school men's ranking, top 5. Am I correct on that, Drew? I'd hate to mess that up.
That is correct.
Okay, Stillman currently has a record of 13-1, 11-1 in the SSAC West. It's actually the second title for Stillman College. They won the regular season in 2018, 2019. And now winning this West Division title. And so this comes as a result of the cancellation of both Stillman College and Loyola University's basketball games that were scheduled for today. So, you know, here's Stillman actually benefiting from the cancellations, which are affecting games all over the place, right? And so as a result, Stillman locked up the conference divisional title with 2 games remaining when it defeated Blue Mountain College 80-78. This past weekend. Number 16, Loyola, is second in the West, and they're going to be unable to catch the Tigers. And so Stillman, and there are actually 3 teams in this conference that are ranked in the top 20. And that's nationally in the NAIA. Stillman, number 15, Loyola 16. In the eastern side, I believe it's Faulkner University. I think it's a university.
Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah, they are actually ranked 7th in the nation. So they are the 1 seed over on the east side. So the SSAC tournament will take place in Montgomery, Alabama, February 24th through the 27th at the Crampton Bowl, which, if I'm not mistaken, Doc, isn't that where the old SWAC tournaments used to be, correct?
Yeah, the Crampton Bowl is where the Turkey Day Classic used to be played for the long term as Alabama State's home stadium before they built their own on campus or back on campus.
Yeah, and about 10 years ago, they added a indoor arena type place to it, just off of the football stadium, and it's all considered the Crampton Bowl complex now.
Okay, yeah. So Stillman's first game in the tournament will be Thursday, February 25th, a 2:15 tip-off against a 4 seed east of Blue Mountain, as the number 4 team in the East, or Blue Mountain, which actually is 5th in the West. So all of that, you can get more information. Go to GoStillman.com. And again, props to Stillman College, 13-1 record, nationally ranked, and it's a great story, and we'll see whether they can keep it going and hopefully get into the national tournament.
No doubt about it. You talk about Stillman College at HBCU, they're getting a lot done in so many different ways. Fascinating when you talk about that backstory. That was that close to getting in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, boy. I bet you those folks in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference wishing they were over there now, because you got the defections, if you'd allow me to call it that, from Xavier and
how that might have changed.
Talladega
changed, right?
Yeah, things happen, and you just don't know when you look at it in history. But with that, without further ado, we have old regular on here, Brother Charles Bishop, Professor Bishop, giving him a chance. And see, he joined us. As you see, he's not in the studio. He's in the car. He's making a special guest appearances because he's literally fighting the weather. So this lets you know how we have the folks are conditioned to make sure they can get you some. So he's able to join us. We're going to treat him as a guest because that's exactly what he is today, bringing him in here. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dr. Cavil. You know, we're dealing with the extenuating circumstances of the weather, power outages all over the place. So just trying to make do.
Man, it's just crazy. How long have you been without power, off and on with power, if you allow me that?
Yeah, it was off and on yesterday, and really about last night, probably about 1 a.m., power went out, and it's been gone pretty much all day today. It looks like we're probably going to another night of power outages, but just, you know, one of those every 3 or 4 year southern winter storm deals that you kind of have to deal with. And, you know, in Texas, we do everything bigger and better. And today we do another natural disaster bigger and better.
or not so much.
Right. Exactly.
Depending who you ask in regards to who's doing bigger and better. But
yeah.
I get you. Makes a lot of sense. Before I share some love with Mike, who literally has joined the show from a hotel. He had to leave the house because he hasn't had power, and I let him tell his own story, but he's found a way to get in here for his interview to join the team in a lot of ways. Really appreciate you all going out your way. With that, Charles, is there anything special that you want to talk about? I know there's a big game that may still have you feeling pretty good this weekend because you kick off the spring with Coach Prime in so many different ways. His debut, he's starting a week early, so I give a lot of credit to Ashley Robinson. The way he set that up, marketing-wise, was simply brilliant to kick things off the week before the rest of the SWAC does officially with a non-conference game against Edward Waters. Talk a little bit about the connection and everything going into the Edward Waters game before we jump over and let Mike share some updates as well.
Sure thing. Well, like you said, they start a week early in terms of playing Edward Waters College and trying to get in that game in this weekend. And, you know, it's a lot of excitement of always around Jackson State football, especially around Jackson, Mississippi. So I don't expect anything different, even with the social distance protocols. I still expect for whatever the percentage capacity that they can have in there, Jackson State fans will be there. So it's a lot of excitement around Jackson State football right now.
No doubt about it. What are your expectations going into this game? What are you looking to see in terms of not only somebody covering Jackson State and all HBCUs, but let's be honest, you're also a big fan of Jackson State University. Is there anything that you're looking for particularly about this first game?
Well, there's always especially Jackson State over the past few years, the offense has really not been up to snuff. So really wanting to see what the offense is able to do this weekend against Edward Waters, especially around the quarterback position. We all know that Shedeur Sanders won't be playing this spring. So really a lot of competition around Jalen Jones and the other young men who are vying for snaps this spring. So it'll be really interesting to see what Jackson State's offense looks like. Last year was the first year that they had an all-SWAC offensive lineman since 2014. So I'm paying attention to those things, like how does the offensive line look? How will the running game look? You know, and it's also, you know, the expectations are a little watered down because I just don't expect for it to be, sharp gameplay going into this first game. And, it's just going to be one of those things where you kind of want to feel it out. It's so new. So you're really trying to figure out what this Jackson State team could potentially look like going into March and maybe April.
Oh, great points. Charles, AD over there, maybe you're going to be a regular guest. You want AD, make sure your seat don't get too warm over there.
Hey, I can't let AD Wally pip me. I got to.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Shout out to Wally.
Hey, I'm only 175 pounds. I got a big treading field. I hope I can fill it with these 175 pounds here, man.
Let me shift over to Mike Washington, and don't worry about it. I know you got folks in it. We're gonna send them some love and put them on the camera if they're not too careful. Hopefully they'll be good with themselves. But we got none other than Professor Washington, Mike Washington, my dog, if you would. Going back many years for so many different ways. I think we counted up and we were like almost shocked because we still think we 30, but I think it's like 30 years since we've known each other. So you think we would come out playing when we were 1 year old if you tell us the truth, even though we didn't meet to college. So y'all figure all that math out. But with that, Mike, how you doing?
They're doing good, man. I caught the end of CB's situation, and mine is kind of like his. It's just one of those situations. It is the winter version of Hurricane Harvey for Texas, basically. So you basically got the winter apocalypse happen, and you got folks acting like there really is an apocalypse. There's, gas stations crowded, liquor stores crowded, like grocery stores crowded. I'm serious. So, but it's one of those things. You deal with it, you adjust. But this life in the hotel with the wife and my youngest has been crazy. So.
No doubt about it. Leave it to Mike. You make sure he said the gas. Everybody knows that you get gas for a hurricane, right? If you're down in the South. You go to the grocery store, right? But if you Mike Washington, you got to make sure that you got the liquor store in between both of those because this is extremely important.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's my dog there. With that, what's some news that you got for us that you think is important that we need to be paying attention to?
Oh, so I know we started talking about it, the MEAC decision to, not have football in the spring. That's really big. And I think that sparked a lot of conversation. I'm excited about the spring football season coming up and those that will play. I heard CB talking about some little school in Jackson. There's another little school in Prairie View that's getting ready to play the State Fair Classic, the spring version against Grambling. It's not an ESPN game, but folks in Texas are really excited and gearing up for that one. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm also excited. I got to give props to the Prairie View volleyball and bowling team. Let's give some love to the spring sports teams as well, especially Coach Glenn White for the bowling team, who was Coach of the Year for the SWAC. So give some love to the other spring teams as well. So those are things that are on my mind. I'm sorry, I normally write this down, but unfortunately I've been back and forth and talking to Centerpoint and taking sips of Merlot. And so
we understand under this stress, you might need not just the Merlot. I might have to make sure you get a couple of good shots because it's been one of those couple of days. Sometimes you say one of those days. No, it's been one of those couple of days.
It has.
Oh, I tell you, I hadn't seen anything like this in my lifetime, and I know that I'm getting up to it. I just had a birthday, so it's been 50 of them, and I appreciate both of you all making sure that you treated me to the birthday. We had big plans for all those that check us out. We were going to go over Bryan and A.D. We were going to go over to the islands, right? We're going to go outside of Florida. We thought about Florida, but we said, no, we're going to do it big. We're going to the Caribbeans, whichever term you like. We were going over there, right? Spend a couple of days. Guys were coming in first, couple of days. We're going to bring in significant others, wives, back over there to kick it right, 50 years, big time. All the folks, we just going to act the fool. So obviously, COVID said, nah, y'all ain't going to do all that. Now I'm wondering, based on the storm, should I found my way over there? I just got a tweet from Alan. He done found his way over there in Cabo. They in the island somewhere. He done disappeared. He said, I can't do this. No, he said, I left Detroit for this. So he's over there. I got another colleague over here. He said he left Houston early. He looked up and got flights.
Uh-oh.
All
right.
He done froze up. See, that's round two. That's round two coming into Houston tonight.
Yeah, it's coming in tonight. It's coming in tonight.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I was like, what, why y'all do me like that?
Yeah, that's round two coming in.
Exactly. So
hey, Doc.
Here says, Doc. Well, you can't go to the island. We're going to take you to the Reggae Hut. And they made sure last week for my birthday at the end of the week, great lunch in so many different ways. And so off the record, because this is national, we'll tell you about that later. With that, let me
Hey, Doc, before you go on, I'm a year and a half away from my 50th, so everything that you didn't get to do for your 50th, we could just postpone and y'all could just come and join me for my 50th. How about that?
I was like, he said it on this, so mark him down. We're going to make that work now. With that, let me stick with you, A.D. Any one gentleman you want to ask the question to?
Just in general, fellas, well, I'll start off with Charles first. How do you think that this weather incident that's affecting not only where you're at, but also in Jackson, Mississippi, may potentially affect the game that everybody is so anticipating on this particular Sunday? Excuse me, I'm about to say Saturday.
I think it's a concern. I think it's a concern moving forward. When you take a look at sort of the forecast the rest of the week, you know that there's one more event that's going to happen that could potentially impact Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So whether Edward Waters is able to get on the road and get to Jackson is a completely different story. I think it will warm up over the weekend, but it's the travel getting to Jackson. And I think, people should kind of keep an eye out for whether they can get this game in. Everything right now is pointing positively, but not sure. And it'll be interesting to see going forward whether this game can actually be pulled off.
Man, I'd like to add in there, while you talk about football coming up and everybody's eyes on that because it's kicking off. This past weekend, I was looking for that Monday night game. And I've been looking for a couple of games. That Monday night game featured Jackson State coming on with 6 wins, right?
Yep.
6 conference wins. Texas Southern was on a 5-game win streak, which included 1 non-conference game. So they had won 4 games after dropping their first 2. And because Prairie View has been off, that's obviously sitting in first place in a lot of people's rankings since Bryan threw out the ranking for A.D. I'll throw out my little ranking. We're going to see in the second half of this show who knows how to rank. We're going to figure out that one out maybe today since somebody's joined the party in terms of rankings. We're going to see how all that come away. But I begrudge a little bit. Let me move forward on that. They're picking on our co-hosts. That's not nice. But I was really fascinated about this matchup, and it was going to be on ESPNU, my understanding. Yeah. In a lot of ways, that game could have considered first place because Jackson State and Jackson State and Prairie View missed both games.
Yep.
Yeah.
So whoever had that game in terms of this odd tiebreaker because they knew a lot of games were going to be mixed, that game could have been extremely important in terms of who was going to do it. They tried to put it in. They had pushed it to Tuesday to try to get it in at 3 o'clock today, and it just wasn't able to do it. They postponed it. So it's going to be interesting to see, is that a game they're going to be able to make up? How they're going to move forward on that? So you talk about kicking off things in football. You go back to basketball, we're in a minute, just talking about how important that game was. With that, go ahead. No,
that will be a huge game. I mean, when you take a look at Jackson State and Texas Southern, they were 2 of the hottest teams coming into that game, and 2 of the leading scorers coming into that game with Michael Weathers at Texas Southern and Tristan Jarrett at Jackson State. So, and the last 2 or 3 games that Jackson State and Texas Southern have played, they've been, barn burners that have come down into the last couple of minutes. So it's unfortunate that they haven't been able to get that game in, but weather being what it is, but it was definitely going to be one to watch and one that I think one of those games I was looking forward to in terms of a matchup this basketball season.
No doubt about it. Bryan, let me jump in and let you ask Mike a question.
So wait a second. Did we skip over the Saturday game, the Prairie View Jackson State basketball game.
Thank you.
It was postponed. That's
all. When genius come to the fray.
But
Mike,
let me let y'all get it in since y'all.
I'm just saying, Mike. I'm glad he came to me with you. He came. I'm getting a chance to talk to you because I'm thinking, wait a minute. I had to go to the SWAC side. I'm like, wait a minute, y'all talking about Texas Southern and Jackson? Wait a minute.
Thank you. I love it when genius comes to the fray.
Thank you. Jackson could have been like 6-1 going into that game because they were playing Prairie View. So Mike, I come to you and ask and say, okay, I don't know about the schedule in terms of how many more opportunities there are, but what are you hearing about in terms of Prairie View and where they are with their scheduling at this point in the season, and how optimistic are you that this game will get made up, or just what are your thoughts on what's going to play out I guess we're into the last maybe 3 weeks of the regular season, right?
Yep. If you go on past precedents, they had a game against Alcorn State, and I don't think they've been able to make that one up. So they've had opportunity to make this Jackson State. I'm not too optimistic. They have the Alabama road trip coming up where they play Alabama A&M, Alabama State. I'm optimistic to see how that one happens. But I'm not too optimistic to see that Jackson State game will happen. They had proposed an alternative date, and I don't think that one even came to the fray. So I think that the Jackson State TSU game was really a battle for second place. Keep in mind, Prairie View has a head-to-head win against TSU, so we would see how they come out. Tristan Jarrett is doing well, but Jackson State's got and they're playing well. CB is right. And I would have liked to have seen that game, but I'm not optimistic that game will happen just because of the weather. And keep in mind, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So with with the weather, you got a lot of people huddled up close together. Plus, you got to travel. I'm just not too optimistic from what I've heard, from various sources that game will come. The alumni group is hoping for it. They really want to see it, but there's just not a lot of optimism that will happen.
No doubt about it. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop holding in. They joining us as guests as they're literally fighting the weather. And so to stand in, we had none other than the Sports Wrap team, Bryan and A.D., taking in and co-hosting the show with me. Guys, we're going to take a quick break, and I know you may have to jump off because of your situations, but you're more than welcome to stay on if you can. Just let me know after this break. We'll see if we have you back, or we'll know that you all have to keep moving and take care and continue to make those calls, the center point energy, and take care of what's going on around here. With that, really appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. Be safe in all seriousness and take care. Thank you again in terms of what's going on. And this is to all others that are affected by this Texas winter storm really throughout the South. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, special edition with Bryan and A.D. of Sports Wrap joining us. We'll be right back. Hold on.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. This is a special episode because of Texas Winter Storm 2021. Can you believe it? We have Charles Bishop and Mike Washington joining us as guests. And so we're going to let them have their parting shots. Sitting in for them because of this winter storm as they are literally without lights. So you see them either in a hotel or in a car trying to take care of us and make sure they can give us a couple of the wisdom as they do it. But joining us on the Sports Wrap team, Bryan and A.D. We'll be right back with them for the rest of the show as we get down into some of the poll rankings, Charles. You're going to imagine how hot and heavy that's going to get. We'll make it fun, just like you all used to hit me off. I'm going to show them what that little ticking keeps on licking. We're going to let them know how that goes. With that, Charles, let me let you jump in first and give us some parting shots in terms of some comments that you want to share with everybody before you have to.
Sure thing. Thank you, A.D. and Bryan, for stepping in tonight and helping us out as we deal with this Texas winter storm. Very appreciative for you guys. Continue to move forward to push the narrative of HBCU athletics. Jackson State football this weekend. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we get it in. And I'm waiting to hear you guys with these basketball rankings because I think I tweeted it today. I was looking for a couple of teams and I didn't see them, so I'm waiting to hear. I'm waiting to hear what we got.
and Charles did directly tweet me, and if you have to go to our Twitter feed to see that exchange between us, but for the Texas Southern people, there's a picture of somebody outside the window looking in. Because they're on the outside looking in of our top five.
Oh, that's pretty good. With that, Mike, give us some of your parting shots.
Yeah, I wanted to see AD's ranking because I don't understand your basis, son. What we have here is a failure to communicate. I look at your rankings and I'm like, what happened?
Well, stay tuned. You'll understand part of the formula by the time we get off. We're going to have a lecture here tonight.
I need to understand your formula and base and your factors. But nevertheless, per review is like 38 and I'm sorry, whatever. They something plus wins in the Baby Dome. We started out talking about TSU versus Jackson State. What we should be talking about is who's gonna knock off the king. And I agree with you. Thank you, B. Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate it. I love it when genius comes to the fray.
Got you.
Other than that, no, AD, in all seriousness, I joke around a lot. Thank you both for sitting in and adding your expertise and your insight. Really appreciate it. And I didn't get in on any of the shots on Twitter or whatever, but I'm kind of monitoring, but my cell service has been kind of shoddy. So thank you both from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate it.
That's all right. We know you're going to get it there. Better late than never. You know, you got tomorrow, Thursday, whenever you get power. Whenever you start responding to those tweets, then I know you're safe and your family is safe. So I'm looking forward to that.
Exactly. You guys be safe out there, man. You guys take care.
Do.
All right, let's do it. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. They're joining us as guests. They're fighting the weather. I really appreciate them taking out their time with that, guys. As Bryan and A.D. said of the Sports Wrap Show, thank you for joining us, stepping in for them, stepping in for you all, and thank you for finding a way to get in here for a little bit. Take care. Be safe. You certainly know you got my number. Anything I can do, we'll make it happen. And anyway, I'm glad to know that you're safe. I'll keep checking on you just like the rest of the lab, and I'll make sure they know a lot of people in the lab are really wishing y'all and praying for y'all well. So they appreciate you going out of your way to do that well. With that, we'll see you Tuesday. Hopefully we'll be much back to normal as possible. I guess that's hard to say with COVID-19 is the such a thing, but back to normal as they would say it. With that, we'll bid you adieu and we're going to get into that poll ranking. I'll let you know how it is. But, Mike, you trained me well. You know, as a little puppy, as you said, brought me into the frat and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I'll be able to handle this one. I'll handle this one, sir.
Please, please. All right, talk to you guys later. I got to run.
All right, take care. That's the other half of the team, a third of the team, as you said, 2/3 of it. But back to this part with the duo from Sports Wrap. Let's get back into it a little bit. Before I do that, I do have a statement that I wanted to provide an update from none other than Donna G. We'll be running a little commercial next week to give you more information on it. But with that, the virtual point10.org, you can go to the virtual, that's TheVirtual.10.org. Saturday, February 27th, family fun meet up along those miles. 10 miles around the lake, White Rock Lake at TP Hill. For more information, that's 32400 West Lothar Drive, Dallas, Texas, 7:30 a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Walk, ride, or run. For more information, go to Facebook at Gold T Strong 3. Got Strong 3. Check it out as you have Donna Glover bringing you hot and heavy in terms of making sure people stay fit and take care of themselves. I'm really proud of Donna. We kind of had a challenge out there, and she has taken away with it, and she's living her best life as we are just making sure that we are along for the ride and make sure that we get to see and celebrate a lot of things coming in life. Obviously, you heard all the tragedy related with COVID-19 and just in general. So we're trying to find a way to help in terms of just being better stewards of the house. So I'll support her as many ways as possible. Wanted to give Donna a shout out for what she's doing and what she's done for herself. Let's get on board. Take care of yourself. Appreciate all the shout out for the lab folks out there welcoming us and making sure that we continue to do better with that help. With that, as we jump back into it in so many different ways, wanted to get into a little bit of this poll ranking thought. But before I did that, let me go back to Bryan and see if there's any additional thoughts that he wanted to add to the table before I go in with AD on this poll ranking a little bit here.
Doc, I did want to make mention of, and I guess it's the one maybe last minute news piece, which I did see come out today. It was actually tweeted out by the Atlanta Braves, who announced that they are hosting an inaugural weekend series between HBCU baseball programs, Grambling State and Florida A&M, while honoring Braves, Hall of Famers, and HBCU graduates in the Ralph Garr, Bill Lucas HBCU Baseball Classic, presented by Truist. And this will be the inaugural series. It'll take place Friday, March 12th through Sunday, March 14th at Coolray Field, home of the Braves' AAA affiliate, the Gwinnett Stripers. I had to make sure I say that correctly. The 3-game series will feature, of course, Grambling and FAMU, which are the alma maters of Ralph Garr and Bill Lucas. Bill Lucas being a class of 58 FAMU baseball player, and Ralph Garr, a Grambling State alum. So that information, I believe you can find that on the Braves website, MLB.com/Braves. And so if you're in the Gwinnett, now I forgive my geography or lack of geography. Gwinnett, if I'm not mistaken, is that in the suburbs of the Atlanta Metro? Is it part of the Atlanta Metro?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's part of the Atlanta Metro, Greater Metro.
Greater Metro.
You know, old school ATLians, they'll be like, Gwinnett is kind of new to the Greater Metro Atlanta. So you can work it either way. But yeah, generally from folks that are part of that area, they will say Gwinnett is the greater part of Atlanta in terms of Metro Atlanta, as they would say in those ways. Right. Let me give you this update. We talked about adding our show on Thursday, but obviously with this weather is going to make that a little more difficult. So stick with us. We're still planning to move forward with that. But next week was one of the official ways that we're going to kick it off. I'm partnering with Langston Clark, who does present this entrepreneurial appetite. He has his own show series he does a book tour where he brings in folks, part of what he's calling the Entrepreneurial Appetite Presents. And next week we have a book for those FAMU folks out there and HBCU sports fans. We interviewed him a while back, but it's good to have him back. And certainly want to partner with Dr. Langston Clark, who's a North Carolina A&T undergrad. He's finished his PhD at University of Texas and now is a professor at UTSA. For those that are not in Texas may not know, that's the University of Texas, San Antonio. And we're bringing in a professor that just moved over to the University of Kentucky, historian who wrote the book. Dr. Derek White, The History of Black College Football, is the conversation we're going to have, but we're going to really focus on his book, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Jake Gaither, Florida FAMU, right? Talking about black college football as we really get into the history of Jake Gaither. So if you all want to check that out, that'll be up next Thursday. That is the 25th of February. It is at 7 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Central Time. So join us. We'll do a little guest where we'll bring it to you both from his platform. You can check him out and follow him to get more information on LinkedIn. Check out Langston Clark. That's Langston Clark. And you'll see the history of black college football in terms of the entrepreneurial appetite in partnership with inside the HBCU Sports Lab. So I'm really excited about what will get done that week and next week. So check that out. With that, let me get into a little bit of this poll ranking. We're going to start it off a nice way because you do what we call the small schools, the men top 5. This year I took a break off from the small schools because really didn't have the CIAA and a lot of schools playing. So I took them off this year. But AD seeing opportunity in the space, the uniqueness about his poll generally, as we talked about it, and I thought it was brilliant, simply put, he does a breakdown for NAIA schools as well as Division II schools and large schools, which would be Division I. Obviously, the Division II schools are not playing, so you have one that breaks down the small schools in terms of NAIA. So we're going to start there. In terms of the men top 5. Top 5, number 5 is Edward Waters, 9-7. Lincoln, Missouri is 10-8. Xavier, Louisiana is 10-4. Stillman at number 2 is 13-1. Talladega is really getting it done, 22-2. I think it's without question. It's certainly in the number 1. Pretty easy on that poll. It's hard to argue about that. So computer rankings, your thoughts, got it right. Let me give you a minute to talk about how do you see Talladega in terms of being the top number 1 team in the poll rankings this week?
Well, obviously the big thing for Talladega is winning the GCAC tournament. And in their head-to-head matchup against the number 2 team in the GCAC, which would be Xavier, they pretty much dominated that matchup. And to my recollection, they have really not been tested in their own conference. They've had tougher competition outside of their conference. Now, the one thing on a national level, their schedule is not getting the respect as far as their strength of schedule. But how they say it, your record, you are what your record says you are. You're 22-2. You're 22-2 for a reason. Whether you playing our Sisters of the Poor or the number 1 team in the nation, you've defeated 22 of the 24 teams that you've played this year.
Brian, I'm going to let you jump in there and give me your thoughts. Before that, I'm going to let you give me your thoughts on both the men's and the women's. So I'm going to go over the women's top 5 for the second time because we're coming up to the top of the hour. So just want to make sure we get all this in. At number 5, we have Edward Waters sitting at 8-4. At number 4, Benedict 7-0. Tuskegee getting it done on the women's side, sitting at 9-0. Shout out to Tuskegee as the Golden Tigers are getting it done in so many different ways. At number 2, Russ sitting at 11-1. At number 1, Talladega 14-2, very strong, holding that number 1 spot. Brian, go in on either the men's or women's top 5 this week. What are your thoughts? And you can go into both or either.
Well, I will just say this. It is interesting whenever you see a program that is dominant on both the men and women's side. And I think it's impressive what Talladega is doing. The men, one of their 2 losses was to, I believe, the 5th ranked team in the country. The other loss was like the second game of the season. I mean, and I think it was like a 5 or 6 point game. But other than that, they have rolled. The women, the one little hiccup for the women, it's a major hiccup, is their loss to Rust. I think that is they've only lost, 2 games this year, Drew? Talladega women. So Rust College is interesting because, and I think really in the women's side, it's probably more interesting than the men because you've got Talladega, Rust, Edward Waters, all sitting right there in the GCAC where it could very well come down to a 3-way tie because Talladega beat Edward Waters beat Rust in overtime, and Rust blew out Talladega. I mean, it was like a 20-point game. So you potentially are going to have a 3-way tie for the regular season seeding into the tournament, and it's going to come down to a roll of the dice, Doc. Can you imagine your fate being the 1 seed where you get a bye versus being the 3 seed? Comes down to how someone rolls the dice. That's what it's coming down. That is amazing that it's coming out today. And I want the live stream broadcast rights to that roll of the dice. I want a pre-show and everything. I want to see some examples of who's rolling. If I'm not mistaken, Drew, Dr. Kiki Barnes is she is supposedly the one that's rolling the dice.
Oh wow! I hope she's visited some of those casinos in their area just to get some practice in.
I want a whole backstory on her experience as an undergrad. I want to know it all. I mean, we're asking all seriousness, but it's just amazing. It should be fun. It'll be stressful because obviously the team who ends up, let's just say Talladega comes out on the short side, you end up as the 3. You may potentially have to play either Edward Waters or Rust in the semifinal. Potentially in the semifinal. So it's just fascinating, the scenario. And we need some fascinating, fun stories like that in a season where cancellations are happening left and right. So I joke, but I do that because it's something that I think is fun, and I hope we end up with the 3-way tie. I'm sure the coaches don't want it, but as a fan, media person, I hope we end up with a 3-way tie. Again, someone please, we've got to get the live. I don't care if it's Instagram live. When Dr. Kiki Barnes, a doctor, ends up rolling the dice to determine who. Enough said. I just want that visual. So I hope, Dr. Barnes, you forgive me on this, but we just have to have the visual of you throwing the dice, and we'll leave it at that. We don't need to get into the history of your dice throwing and things of that nature at casinos or elsewhere. But I'm just saying we just have to see it happen.
That is great timing that you bring that up, because I just got a text from Kiki Baker Barnes a little earlier today. And I just think we should have that Prices Right with the big dot, big dice. Maybe we can talk to Roy. He's all things in terms of the producer. So if there's a way, find a way, right? Let's see if we get this on live TV, Zoom. I think the people would love it. We need some help. We need to make sure it happens first. But then we'll see if we can talk that in there. But with all seriousness, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes as she continues to get it done. Presented by the New Orleans Pelicans.
Okay.
So you want to be you want a career in athletics. A Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes initiative. And she's gotten a partnership from the New Orleans Pelicans, Women Winning in Athletics, a virtual empowering experience for girls and women in sports, in partnership with Dillard University Athletics, Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, as she is the commissioner there in so many different ways. So she'll be obviously on the panel. Feature speakers are really pushing this along. She is the athletic director, Dillard University, founder of the SYWACIA, as well as the commissioner of the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, and Ashley Amos, video producer of the Pelicans, Jana Austin, assistant athletic trainer of the Pelicans, Ariel St. Julian, I think it is, team dietitian for the Pelicans, Teresa Weatherspoon, assistant coach for the Pelicans, as well as Gina Rosen, director of mental health and wellness for the Pelicans.
Is that Spoon from the Liberty?
Sports journalist, Fox Sports, NFL, and NBA founder of the Sideline Pass. So I did a favor for us, so I'm going to see if I can call in a favor for the roll of the dice if it comes down. See, sometimes you just got to figure out the way how you make things happen. So, Roy, you're on the clock.
And we did not plan that, everybody. That just happened on the fly. Hey,
no doubt. That's just how good we are. We find a way to get it done. Let me
Before we jump off the small school women, the other two teams in our small school women's ranking, Tuskegee and Benedict, the number 3 to number 14, played a back-to-back home and home this week. Okay. They will play 4 times this week.
Wow.
Wednesday and Thursday in Columbia, South Carolina, Saturday and Sunday in Tuskegee, Alabama. So if either one of these teams happen to sweep that series, that's going to put them in a great position to get an at-large, since the SIAC is not sponsoring a tournament this year. It's going to put them in a great position to get an at-large bid to the Division II tournament. Even a 3-1 by either one of these teams is going to put them in a great position to receive an at-large bid to the Division II tournament, and the other one will probably pretty well be essentially eliminated for an at-large bid, considering they're only taking the top 6 this year. And Benedict is in the receiving votes area right now in the region. Tuskegee is on the outside looking in the Division II region. That's just on the coaches poll because the actual regional rankings have not come out yet.
Now, Doc,
man. Great inspiration. I'm glad you shared that. That was pretty good.
Yes, but Drew buried the lead on that whole story right there. Look, Drew, I hate to do this.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the last time that Tuskegee beat Benedict, President Obama was in the White House. That is the last time. It was 2013. January of 2013 was the last time that Tuskegee beat Benedict. Do you know, Doc, and we did this on our show, so that you can go to our show and catch this more in depth. But I'll just give this one nugget. 1 Bitcoin in 2013 would have cost you anywhere from $100 for 1 Bitcoin to maybe $300 for 1 Bitcoin. And if you pay attention to that crypto market, that 1 Bitcoin today is worth $48,000 to $49,000.
Wow, man, I needed you as my analyst. In terms of telling me that I would have jumped on that, and I've been sitting up here laughing with a lot of folks on that one. Wow.
I didn't know how to buy Bitcoin back then. I wish someone
would know what Bitcoin was.
I knew what it was. I just didn't know how to go buy it. I was like, can you go
I knew what it was.
7-Eleven?
How to buy it. That's what
7-Eleven, or where are they selling that at? I want one of those Bitcoins. But anyway,
exactly.
I appreciate it. Right.
I do want to jump in before we get into the women. I know we're rolling, but there's another thing that I think you do that's really nice. You do a Players of the Week in terms of ringing. So before we get into the large division with the men's and women's, give us the Player of the Week for both the men's and women's on the small side.
Give me just a second, because I didn't know we were going in today. I've got them right here. I just got to pull them up. Our small school women's Player of the Week was Ashika Alexander of Langston University. She's a 5'10" senior forward from Gwinnett, Georgia, and she is top 10 in the NAIA in scoring. And as I pull up her stats for the week, even though Langston lost both of their games this week, she just had an astonishing stat line that we had to roll with her despite Langston's 0-2 record on the week. She had averaged 26 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 4 steals on the week.
And she averages about 21 points a game nationally. So she is in the top 10 in the nation in NAIA scoring.
Oh, that's pretty big time. Big time.
Yeah. Now on the men's side, and it was real tough on the men's side, and I'll throw our top 2 candidates out before I tell you which one of it was. Greg Boyd of Tuskegee, they split on the week. They went 1-1, averaged 28 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 4 assists on the week. He did not win the award. I want everybody to think about that with that kind of a stat line. But the winner was Trey Petty of Stillman, who averaged 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists on the week. And Stillman went 3-0 on the week.
Well deserved. Well deserved. Anytime you get 3 W's, you need to be in that Player of the Week hunt. So I like that pick. Both of those are tremendous pick and great insight in terms of the Benedict Tuskegee matchup, both in terms of what it could mean for opportunity to play in the postseason, and also the little historic nugget that Bryan dropped the dime in on that. With that,
that's what you get on the Sports Wrap every week.
There you go. Join them out. They went inside the numbers in a lot of ways. Check it out and see as you get them. Follow them on the Sports Wrap every week, usually on Fridays.
It's been varying because of our conflicting schedules during basketball season, because we both do different things with basketball. Just like and subscribe, and then you get the alert.
Yeah, just subscribe to them and you'll get the alert and they'll bring it to you. That's the best way to do it. With that, let's go into the large division on the women's side. And this time we're going to do a little comparison. So we're going to see where it shakes out and where it all gets done. This is the fun point. So we're going to extend this just a little bit. So bear with us. We'll go in there maybe another 15 minutes and then we'll let you go. But this is really the meat of what we want to go and where we're going to have a little fun. So we'll start with the women's side. I have those teams what I call receiving votes. You got them in the hunt. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll do it in ascending order. Starting out with the bottom of my hunt, I have Alcorn State Braves sitting at 5-9, 5-5, 30 points. You have Southern sitting at 7-9 right there at the bottom. And just coming up from that, I have Southern Jaguars. So we're a little close right there, 7-9 as we said. I have Southern with 39 points. You have just above Southern and moving up to the top 5. You have Grambling State sitting at 7-7. Now, both of us have, as you would, I'd have it basically the number 16 just outside of the top 5. I have Alabama A&M Bulldogs sitting at 7-3. You have Alabama A&M Bulldogs in terms of the women. So let's get into this top 5 and see if there's any meat on this bone and see if there's any difference that we can pick a bone at this and see what's going on here. At number 5, both of us have Morgan State, the Bears, sitting at 9-3, 6-2 overall. Obviously, you have them at number 5, too, as we said. 45 points, I have them. They remain at 5. I had them at 5 last week. Bringing us to number 4, Howard Bison is who I have, 10-3. 2 first-place votes sitting at 84 points. They remain at number 4. AD has Jackson State sitting at 10-5. So it's a little difference there. This is where it would be fun, and Charles cannot be picked on right now, but we're going to see if he is able to give you those googly eyes. Maybe that's what he was looking at. It was more on the men's side, but we'll see. At number 3, you do have the Howard Bison. You have
so we just got a flip-flop.
Yeah, where I have them. And I have North Carolina A&T State Aggies sitting at 9-1. 2 first-place votes. I have them at 85 points. So I do have it close, 85-84 in that. So we do have a little difference in terms of 3 and 4 ranking, but we're right in the ballpark, if you would. I have it number 2. Jackson State Tigers. You have it number 2, North Carolina A&T 9-1. So where you have Jackson State 4, I have them 2. Where you have North Carolina A&T at 2, I have it at 3. But there is no argument right now. Both of us have Alabama State at the 1 spot, sitting at 10-1, 90 points. I have them with 3 first-place votes. And so in terms of our top number 1 team and a 5 team, we're the same. We essentially have the top 5 teams in there, so no big beef there. So I don't know if we will save a lot of this earnings to the men's side. But on the women's side, it seems like you know what you're doing on your rankings. I always can get you a little up and down there, so no big fight. I'm gonna let Bryan.
I just got one question for you on your women's rank.
All right, let me get in Bryan, and then I'm gonna come back to your question. Let you chop it up a little bit. Bryan, which of these poll rankings? I know that's your sidekick. Which poll rankings makes more sense to you?
Well, okay. So This is what's interesting about this, because it is a formula. It is a formula, and I think we need to understand we are taking the human element out of this. So because yes, if I were in the human, if I were voting for this, I might, honestly look at, what Jackson State has done and say, oh yeah, Jackson State, X, Y, and Z, they've a 7-game winning streak. North Carolina A&T though, a 9-game winning streak. I might go look at other ratings. I might go look at the net ratings versus other places. So I understand the pollsters, the people who are voting. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Drew's. And Drew knows I will question his formula when I see something that is a little off for me, but I trust his numbers. I trust the numbers. Numbers don't lie. They will eventually work themselves out, I believe, I hope. And so, yeah. So that's all I will say. I do feel good about the fact that we have the same 5 teams. We have the number 1 team correct. So everything else is a wash to me. But I think it makes for great debate.
I like this, Bryan. You sound just like I do with Mike and Charles when they get on me. That's the whole line. So I'm really feeling good about this right now because that's the language that we're supposed to talk. It's the formula. As I said, it's the computer. And they were like, man, where do you get that damn computer from? So,
well, but look at what I liked about your poll, Doc. Is if you look at the points. I mean, look at the point system where you have literally there are 3 points between 2 and 4. And what last, if I'm not mistaken, first place votes. They all got 2 first place votes.
That's
so
right.
It really is that close.
And our computer rankings say the same thing.
I was going to say that the formula, if you look at the way ours is calculated, if you were to look behind the curtain, you would end up seeing that the numbers look very similar in terms of the disparity between 2 and 4.
AD, I know you said you had a question. What was your question?
I'm gonna speak on that formula and say, matter of fact, our formula when we came up with this formula, we thought we would never see this. But we almost had a statistical tie between the number 2 and the number 3.
Wow, nice.
Our formula, is right, but it goes out decimal points. The number 2, A&T, and number 3, Howard, was separated by 0.03 points.
I love it.
In our formula, 3/100ths of a point. And just to get that some type of framework, Dr. Cavil, both these teams, based on our formula, have over 1,000 points.
Okay.
So to be separated by 3/100ths of a point, and you have over 1,000 points accumulated,
that's amazing.
That tells you how close it was.
No doubt about it. That's simply amazing. Great.
My question to you is, do the Aggie fans beat up on you on your Twitter feed like they beat up on us on our Twitter feed, asking us why their team is not this or why their team is not that?
Yeah, Aggies fans beat up on everybody. They think they got this thing with the homecoming, greatest homecoming on earth. I think they done pushed that into athletics. And they think they're the greatest HBCU on earth, greatest athletic program on earth. And I'm be like, not so fast. All right, you've had a great decade.
Thank you.
We'll give you
You've had a
5 years.
It's been a great decade. You're right.
There's a history to this. There's a history to this. You all have
gambling. You are
don't
not
act like that's what happens when
people
are brand new to this. That's what happens when they don't have the true history and all that. They act like they're brand new to this. You know how those folks tell you, Coach Fulford knows this. When he tells a young man, act like you dunked before. Act like you made the layup before. Act like you won before. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're talking about with the Aggies. And it's a great one. We got some followers here. One out of Dallas. He always chimes in here. I don't know what happened between him and the rest of the Aggies because he is grounded. He just brings it. He's strong. He has ups and downs with his takes, and he's brilliant. But the rest of the family over there, I don't know what water they drink of last. And that's the problem. They're not drinking the water.
It's all that running around screaming Aggie pride. I remember that vividly when we went
I digress.
Campus,
with that AD, give me, before we get into the men and see if we can get a little more controversy in this, give me a women's large school player of the week.
Just a moment, unless Brian has it pulled up ahead of me.
Yeah, it was from a lady from North Carolina A&T State, Shannon Scott.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's get into the men's side and see what we got and see if there's any difference from what we see on the men's side. You have 3 teams sitting on the outside looking in the hunt, as you call it. I have 4 teams receiving votes, so a little more teams on the outside. I had 2 teams drop out of the poll ranking this week, so I had that kind of stuff, who's coming in and coming out. And so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. I had Morgan State dropping out, just for you all that know. I had Grambling State in the poll last week, so they dropped out based on their loss this week. So let's see if we can get some information here, and I already see something because he still has Grambling in there. I have him dropping out, so let's see what this looks like. I have Coppin State Eagles on the outside looking in. Better known.
Coppin State's not even in the
Yeah, you don't even have Coppin State in there, which is fine. I can see why. They only got 12 points on mine, so I'm not going to break you for that. And then, hedging that bet, you have Hampton Pirates. I have them at 9 and 11. I have, including the loss they had yesterday. You did your poll before they lost yesterday, 9 and 10. But same thing, right?
Yeah.
And then in that next spot, still receiving votes, I have Alabama A&M Bulldogs, 6-3, 4-3, 25 points. They hit a slide. They are hurting after jumping off really well this season, 4-0. They went down to Texas and hit it in the head, and now they had a couple of weeks off. They couldn't play. Then they ran into a rival, which is a shock, surprise a lot of people. They were handling in their first half. Then Alabama State got it going, and they dropped out. But you have North Carolina A&T sitting on the outside. So this is going to be interesting. We got a lot of difference in the poll this time on the men's side. You have them at 8 and 9, I as well, but I have them in the top 5. And then you have in the hunt, last one in the hunt, you have Texas Southern sitting at 7-7. I have Morgan State in the hunt. As I said, they dropped out. They were in my top 5 last week along with Grambling. So we'll see how this goes. So let's get in the top 5 and see what is all the rankings about here. I have it number 5. Texas Southern Tigers sitting at 7-7, 4-2, 50 points. They were not ranked. You have Alabama A&M sitting at 6-3 in the top 5. At number 4, Grambling State Tigers 9 and 9, and I told you already they dropped out. So at number 4, I have Norfolk State Spartans sitting at 12-7, 7-4. They got 2 big wins, and now they control their destiny in the Northern Division. They've been up and down, but they got a big win over Morgan State. The surprise, Morgan State was playing some basketball, so that hurt me for them in regard. That helped Norfolk State for me, but hurt Morgan State. At number 3, North Carolina A&T Aggies sitting at 8 and 9, 4-0. One first place vote. That's how much rankings there. I think about what they're doing. 80 points. At number 3, you have Prairie View A&M, 7-4. They hadn't played in a couple of weeks. I wonder if that has hurt them. We'll get a chance to touch on that. But a couple of teams in the top 3 teams haven't played in the last couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. As I have at number 2, Jackson State Tigers sitting at 6-5, 6-0, one first place vote, 81 points. So really close to North Carolina A&T. But at number 2, you have Morgan State. I don't even have them in the top 5. You have them at number 2. Wow. And number 1, Norfolk State Spartans. I agree with you. That is a top 5 team. Certainly don't have them at number 1. They weren't even ranked for me last weekend. I have Prairie View A&M 7-4, 7-0, 7 first place votes, 99 points. Still ranked number 1. They hadn't played in a couple of weeks, so we'll see. What is this all about? Instead of letting Brian jump in here and talk about his thoughts, I'm going to go directly to AD since there's so much variability in this poll. Tell us what's going on, AD. What's the problem here? What is your excuse?
I got your back too. Don't worry about it. I got you.
All right. First of all, because I was looking at this, Jackson State was left off in the hunt. Jackson State should be in the hunt, directly behind Texas Southern.
Okay.
So I'll admit that error. I left them off on the sheet.
That don't mean nothing if that's like me. You're receiving votes. You're an afterthought. That's just nice
Okay.
for all the folks that we just trying to appease to get a couple more people on our Twitter feed. That means nothing. Let's get into the five. I don't have
let's get it to the five.
I have the problem that you don't have Jackson State in your top five. I don't understand that. But you don't have to worry about trying to be nice to Jackson State, talking about in the hunt. You have them out top five. That don't mean nothing. Put them out there. Don't even say nothing. Make them disappear. Because that's essentially what you did. Explain yourself.
Okay. Number one, don't disrespect. But I wonder how many of your posters have SWAC bias. I'll go throw that in there. Number two, once again.
Well, we can say that with you. Y'all got MEAC bias, East Coast bias.
I got numbers bias. I don't care where you played at. Now, here's the problem that that the SWAC teams tend to have. Same thing as SWAC football. They're out of non-conference. SWAC teams have not traditionally beat non-conference teams. During the non-conference portion of the basketball season, MEAC teams were able to pick up some non-conference wins. SWAC teams were getting some good checks, but no W's. So that has affected them 6 to 8 weeks later when it comes to the formula that we have used.
He said 6 to 8 weeks later it shows up.
I mean, Jackson State did not have a win. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jackson State was winless coming into conference, correct? Texas Southern was essentially winless coming into conference. Morgan State had victories. Norfolk had victories. A&T had non-conference victories, although one of them was against a Division III school, but they still had victories.
I got you. I'm just saying
they had victories. That's what the difference in the formula is.
I see the records. I understand it. I'm just trying to figure out how it shows up 6 to 8 weeks later. But that's a different discussion. Let me let Bryan jump in here and help defend his dynamic duo, his teammate in the sports wrap, because he needs your help right now. 6, 8 weeks? Come on.
Well, look, I'm gonna repeat what he said to an extent. I mean, look, Prairie View A&M, Jackson State, they're both 6-0 in conference. So
Bryan, I help him. I didn't say repeat it. Go ahead.
Well, look, I just want to give people the numbers, because if they're not seeing it, they need to understand. That means Prairie View A&M was 1-4 going into conference. Jackson State was 0-1 going into conference. Morgan State has been the number one team in our rankings for, I believe, the last 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, and the only team that they have really struggled against is Norfolk State. Norfolk State, and now granted, Morgan State has played good games against Coppin, and Coppin is for people who watch Coppin is a good team. Problem is, Coppin is on the same side with Norfolk State and Morgan State. That's a big problem for them. But Coppin is a very talented team. Morgan State, very talented team. So Morgan State has beaten Coppin. They've gotten the best of Coppin. Norfolk State has won 3 of 4 games, especially after the sweep this weekend. They've beaten Morgan 3 or 4 times. So when you start looking at those teams and you start looking at, prior to this weekend, Morgan was 11-4, 11-3 or something like that.
11-4.
Yeah, I mean, literally, had they split, if they would have split with Norfolk State, they'd probably still be sitting at number 1 based on the formulas. And as Drew said, I mean, wins matter. You know, look at the games that you're playing. The wins matter. And I think what really did hurt this weekend is the lack of opportunities to play by Prairie View A&M and Jackson State. You know, the fact that they missed out on a chance to play each other. That would have helped the ratings tremendously, especially for the team that won.
I agree. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I just think, you know,
I think you ultimately did help AD out. I like what you said. I only think over that, I like wins matter, but I would also say when you win also matters.
And our formula accounts for conference victories.
Well, Prairie View hasn't played in 2 weeks.
It does give bonus points for conference victories.
Prairie View is not. Now, look, I noticed one thing. The pollsters in your poll, they had Prairie View last week. They were number 1 last week, correct?
Correct. They've been the number 1 for the last 2-3 weeks.
So for 2 weeks while they haven't played, what's been happening? Well,
Also, the top, what has helped them is the fact that the top 3 teams, for the most part, haven't played in a week. And so it helped them. North Carolina A&T, that's been solid. And all these teams do not have conference losses. I think, as you point out, I do agree with you that Norfolk State, Morgan State, and Coppin State, what has hurt them is they're all strong. They've been playing each other, but they beat each other up. As you said, you have Coppin State that's 3-1 against Norfolk State, but then you turn around and Norfolk State is 3-1 against Morgan State, but Morgan State is 3-1 against Coppin State. So the only thing I say about that is I think the overall ranking, which I agree with your computer, but also I think there's a fluctuation in terms of when you win. It's hard for me to push you up in a certain category when you're coming off of losing 2 games, whatever, and then you come back and win 2 games. Yes, that push you up, but it depends on where you're starting from. You're not going to jump up 3 or 4 spots based on the fact that you're up and down, even though you're playing a solid team. You still got to win. And so it's just a difference in the formula right there. But I think your overall framing, I do like that, and I think you make good arguments. So I'll give you credit on that. Our time is up. Yeah. So I think you did yourself well. But I will say this in defense of Bryan and A.D., you handled yourself really well on the show today. I want to give you a great deal of credit, and we'll end on a positive note. So give us the men's player of the week before we close.
Brian. Men's player of the week. All right, you caught me off guard. Real quick. Men's player of the week is actually from Norfolk State, and it's Devontae Carter. And I believe Devontae was even named the MEAC player of the week. Devontae, 6'3" senior from Newport News, Virginia. He averaged 18.3 points a game, 6 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists. And as mentioned, he was a key player in the 2 wins over Morgan. They even played Coppin State earlier in the week. They lost that game, but I think Carter was even the top scorer for Norfolk State in that contest as well. So that was our player of the week, large school division, Devontae Carter from Norfolk State.
Before we close, I did want a shout out, and we've been teasing people for this a couple of weeks. I know we don't have enough time to go in detail, and we'll bring you back on this, but I wanted to tell folks to get out there and read it. You said Saban follows path of HBCU legends, dynasty makers. I got the co-author this with you. I thought it was brilliant on your part in terms of the thought process that you went about it. If you would, in a short synopsis, just give people a framework of what you were thinking of when you did this and why you recommend them reading.
I think when people think about the word dynasty, I think because of people tend to think in small terms, maybe 3-5 years. Like I've heard people say the Cowboys of the 90s were a dynasty. I mean, that was like a 5-year run where they won 3 Super Bowls, right? To me, a dynasty, because I grew up following football back when the Steelers owned the 70s. The 49ers owned the 80s. I hate to say it because they were beating up my team, but the Patriots owned the early part of the 2000s. Those were, and the Lakers and Celtics ruled the 80s. The Bulls run the 90s. Those were decades. So in looking at what Nick Saban's done at Alabama, he has owned the decade of the last 10 to 13, 12 years. I mean, he has won 6 national titles in the past 13 years. And so everybody going forward in college football is going to be compared to him. That's going to be a very hard feat, even for a Dabo Swinney at Clemson, who's having success in a little 5-year window between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, right? But before that, what was the term we used to always say about Clemson? Oh, they're Clemsoning. They're going to find a way to blow a game, right? And then all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson, now they had good players. Don't get me, Taj Boyd. They had all these NFL guys. But then all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson changes the narrative, followed by Trevor. But that's a small 5-year window. So it got me to thinking, as much as people are talking about Saban, where's Eddie Robinson in this discussion? And then because we had the fortune of talking to Dr. Janella McLeod McLeod over at Florida A&M, who's putting together this documentary on Jake Gaither, it also brought to mind, well, what about Jake Gaither? And so I'm thinking to myself, let me go do some digging and look at when they had their most successful periods of time. I mean, now Coach Robinson coached for 40-something years. So it almost seems crazy to try to narrow it down to a, 13-year window like I did. But in reality, there is a 13-year window in the 70s to early 80s when they were at their best. When and this was right as desegregation was happening too. That's another amazing thing, right? So, I mean, that's a whole shift in college football that was happening, but he was at his best during that period of the 70s, from like 70, 71 into 83. And then you had the expansion into division, I guess what they call 1AA, FCS. You had Florida A&M winning a national championship. You had Grambling on the cusp of those playoff games where they were actually ranked the #1 team in one of those years. And so that's what led me to look at saying, Robinson, Gaither, and then, I mean, you brilliantly brought up Billy Nix, who I will admit I was not aware of Billy Nix and what he did at Prairie View A&M, but when you dropped that nugget, I was like, whoa, Doc, we got something. Because when I went to look at a 13-year period for Billy Nix, I was like, whoa, we're talking about Prairie View right now in terms of the more recent years. But when you go back to look at what he did in the 50s and the 60s, that period there was so dominant. And we're talking Black College National Championships, and we all know that was all we had the opportunity to be a part of. So right. No one should devalue a Black College National Championship because they wouldn't let us participate in their championship. So thankfully we had organizations like the Pittsburgh Courier and other organizations that have come along, like yours and ours and other companies that have come along wanting to recognize HBCU programs. And so it needs to be discussed and framed that, yes, what Nick Saban is doing is great for today and the modern era, but let's look at a period of time when all of the young men that are at Alabama couldn't go to the University of Alabama because they would not allow them to. I mean, HBCUs were created for a reason because they would not allow us to be at Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, all these other schools. And so we need to sort of appreciate that history. And I just wanted to make sure that in that discussion that we recognize some of the great coaches. And I tried to focus in on that dynasty period and then winning that 5 to 6 national championships at one school. Because we've had some coaches do it at multiple schools, which is great in the overall picture. But I'm talking at one school. If you ran it at one school, then that's what I was looking for. And so it was a fascinating research piece. And so I hope if you get a chance to go out and read it, share it. I mean, share it with somebody young, somebody who appreciates history. Because I think we can watch football and we can watch the Power Fives, we can watch the big schools. But I think as you start to really love football, you start to learn the history of football, and then you start to find yourselves going towards that period of time when they wouldn't allow us to play at Alabama and these other schools in the South that are so dominant today, LSU. And that's when you start learning about, Southern, Grambling, Tennessee State, Jackson State. You start learning about all these other HBCUs through the history of college football. So I hope I explained.
No, that was really well said. That's why I really didn't want to break in, because you were breaking it down so well. When you talk about that 6 and 7 championship demarcation, it was amazing how things fall out. And it really separates these top ones. And then you think about some other ones that were great coaches.
Yes.
You know, I was saying the other day when we looked at this, and I didn't want to use the vernacular, the Mount Rushmore. A lot of people use that. I wanted to use the, different terminology when we talk about what that looks like. And we talk about that North Carolina 4, when you talk about the Greensboro 4. And we had 3 solid. And then we had these other coaches that people could look at and they could determine who that 4th person was. Or they could take out and have their own 4 they may have differently. But I thought it was beautifully done when we talked about looking at those top 4 coaches as we talk about the Greensboro 4 of who would be the pinnacle. And when you start really talking about that 13-year period of what that looks like, particularly over one school period of time, may have coached at different places, but at least over the magnitude of their career, they coached at one spot and won those multiple championships, 5 and above, really created the demarcation. It was fascinating to do that and go and dig in that treasure trove. And as we did, we just kept unpeeling layers and going down those rabbit holes. So again, check it out. Saving Follows Path of HBCU Legends, Dynasty Makers. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil and Bryan Fulford, thank you for letting me help on that project. Go to mybcsn.net, mybcsn.net, and check out Dynasty Makers, talking about the dynastic framework of HBCU sports history. Fascinating in so many ways. With that, we're coming to a close officially now. Want to thank again A.D. and Bryan for joining me as Sports Wrap, Bryan and A.D. of the Sports Wrap. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, with Mike Watts and Charles Bishop. Again, prayers go out to everybody affected by this winter storm in Texas. Kudos for Bryan and A.D. of the Sports Wrap joining us, standing in for them. Mike and Charles did get to come in and give us some of their thoughts. Appreciate them taking time out of their schedule to make that happen. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watts and Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here at 6 o'clock. We did a little additional time for you, special time, as we had special guests. Wanted to get into a lot of great conversation. Got to break down the poll rankings. I thought that was a little bit of fun. Took A.D. to the task, but I think he did well for himself, as well as Bryan helping out his teamwork. Great information. I had to give him credit. They were able to bring it. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Again, that's DrKenyattaCavil. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Follow Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter. Check us out with the BCSN app so you'll know when you can find Sports Wrap or myself when we go live, as we starting to do multiple things. Check us out. Look for us to do our additional show on Thursday as we start to get into the spring football. Should be fun. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. As we like to say at this time, A.D.
Of course.
Lecture.
Bryan.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
We holler.